You're very welcome along to a special edition of the Matchbook Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. We are going to be previewing the US Masters, one of the biggest weeks of the year in sport, and definitely the biggest week in golf. I'm your host, delighted to welcome Will Turl, who is working for Matchbook. And also, I would say you regularly bet on the golf, Will. You were tipping, trying to tip up a couple of winners for us a couple of weeks ago. You're obsessed with golf, I would say.
In-house tipster.
In-house tipster.
In-house tips is probably as good as you'll get. Yeah, I wouldn't be putting my neck on the line too much, but I'm definitely a big golf fan, and I think I know my bet. So yeah, a few selections for you.
Well, I've seen one of your long shots, so we'll get to that debate that you messaged me about just before we came on air, and we'll let the people decide that. But I'm delighted to welcome our special guest, Jack Kelliher. Jack, for those listeners and viewers that aren't aware of yourself, to give people a little bit of background in your background in betting itself, and then looking ahead to the Masters, I'd say you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, can't wait for this week. It's going to be an absolute belter, isn't it? So really looking forward to it. Yeah, my background is spent 7 or 8 years betting for full time for a living. I sort of learned the trade off a few people that horse racing game. I used to work at a company called Aon, a risk management company, and sort of met a lot of actuaries and things in that environment. And crossed the skill sets between sort of that world and betting, and went solo and bet for 7 or 8 years. That's what introduced me to people in the industry, and then took a role at a company called Race Sports a few years back, who did some business with Matchbook. So delighted to be here, and been a big admirer of the podcast and the Matchbook Insights blog for some time.
Okay, yeah, Jack. And before we get started, you have a newsletter that we're gonna put up some of it on Matchbook Insights, which will be out on Tuesday afternoon. But just to give people a little bit of an insight into what goes into that newsletter, because there's a bit of work in it.
Yeah, each week I preview the golf event and help people with saving time really in the research. Look at all the key skill sets that are going to be important that week, how the course is going to play, what it's going to be, what are the key requirements from each and every player to be successful. And I produce that newsletter each and every week. So it's available at gingerbets.io, and today will be also on the Matchbook Insights podcast, some of the selections that are in there.
Very good. And we will link, that is linked in your description now, wherever you're listening or watching on the podcast. So check that out. Worthwhile read, I would say. Before we get going, to point people in the right direction, if you haven't got a Matchbook Betting Exchange account and you would like one and you're a golf punter and you're interested, we have a special new customer offer for the Masters, and it's bet £10 on the Masters and you get £30 in free bets on each of the next 3 majors. So that is the USPGA, the US Open, and the Open Championship. You have to sign up to Matchbook with the bonus code GOLF. That's GOLF. Place your bet, and once it's settled, you will get a £10 free bet on each of the next 3 majors. And full terms and conditions are available on the promotions tab on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Now, we always give new customer offers, and those current customers, there is also a special offer. If you opt in on the promotions tab on the Matchbook Betting Exchange, there is a special golf money back special. If your golfer is the outright leader at the end of any of the 3 rounds prior to the 4th round, obviously, and fails to win, you get your money back, and that is up to £100 as a free bet. So while we're checking out, again, terms and conditions are available on the Matchbook promotions tab. But yeah, really good offer there. So of course, for example, just looking at if you back Scotty Scheffler, he leads after round 3 and doesn't win, you get your money back as a free bet up to £100. Terms and conditions apply. Before we get going, if you do like and subscribe wherever you're listening to the channel, it'd be much appreciated. And do check out our Champions League content, Premier League content, and Grand National content coming this week. Is probably pound for pound the best week, at least betting week of sport of the year. But we'll start with a bit of an intro, guys. Jack, I'll let you start us off here. Scotty Scheffler, 6.0 favourite currently in the Matchbook Betting Exchange. We'll get to prices in a second. But yeah, is he going to spoil the Masters for us this year?
Well, if the stats are anything to go by, then it's done already. He's won by 5, 6, 7, or 8. Yeah, unbelievable form coming in here this week. It is one of the worries that I do have. He's not a player that I've gone for at the top of the board, given how his price has contracted over the last few weeks. But there is a chance, given the fact that some of the top players in the world are out of form, that he could scoot clear and spoil the Masters come Friday evening.
Yeah, and the second thing I want to bring up with you, Jack, is the weather. So, like, I mean, I would regularly use the Norwegian site, yr.no, and if you look at the amount of mils of rain due on Thursday, could we be looking at a bit of suspension, the course coming back and being very soft? That changes our betting thinking entirely, really.
Yeah, it's something I'll be keeping a close eye on as we get towards Thursday. It'll affect the draw bias, that's for sure. And we'll be looking to see whether there's any wind comes with that race, I think, and directions as well of the wind as well. It plays a huge importance at all golf courses, and Augusta National will be no different. So I'll definitely be paying attention to it. It does look like it's going to be thunderstorms on Wednesday evening as well, I think, from the latest forecast I've seen. So it could soften up the course. A lot of player interviews earlier in the week, or from yesterday, should I say, they were talking about how firm conditions are in the run up to it. So it might just soften things up and make it gettable on that Thursday morning. So first round leader picks might be Thursday morning tee times to look for.
Okay, yeah, so maybe hold your powder dry at least to maybe Wednesday and see how that all plays out. Will, I mean, we mentioned Scotty Scheffler there. Spoiler, no one's officially putting him up as a play. Are we all a little bit mad? Have we not been watching golf over the last 12 months?
Yeah, I feel like this is the predicament you have pretty much every week at the moment, is ride Scotty or ride against him. I just think the worry with his putter is probably the only thing that puts me off going for him, with all my money that I'm staking, because he can have one of those weeks where the putter just isn't there, and Augusta, we know that's pretty important. So I'd rather pick a few others and have a few goes at it rather than all my money on Scotty. That's where I'm at anyway. But you're right, it could if he drives it and hits every iron shot to 4 foot, he's going to hold most of them. So yeah. we could be seen to be silly at the end of the week.
Yeah, he had a terrible week last year and still ended up in the top 10. So, look, if you're looking for a safe play, I wouldn't put anyone off the 6.0 on the Matchbook Betting Exchange, which is the best price on the odds checker grid versus the sportsbooks by far. So while we're checking it out, but we'll have a look at the prices. Just incidentally, the running order, we're going to try and keep it to one selection each at the top of the market, middle of the market, the bottom of the market. A little bit of other thoughts or what made our long list and didn't quite make the plays for the three selections essentially. And then, of course, we'll do maybe a little bit of betting strategy throughout the week, because I've been to the Masters many times on Saturday morning where I have no bets in play. So we will check out the prices on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Look at that. It's half the price as his next competitor. Scotty Scheffler, 6.0 on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Rory McIlroy, 13.5. John Ram is 14.0. Xander is 18.5. Matsuyama 22.0. Jordan Spieth 26.0, just ahead of Brooks, who's 27.0. And Joaquin Niemann is 32.0. We're around 40 and bigger the rest. Jack, your first selection. Maybe we'll just leave the top of the market. If you want to maybe talk through your thought process before eventually settling on this market. So if we leave the top four there with Scotty, Rory, John Ram, and Xander, which one of them appeals to you at the current prices?
Yeah, well, it's Xander for me at the prices. I think there's too many doubts at the moment, albeit Rory put in a decent performance last week, certainly in hand. I think he ranked third for strokes gained approach last week. I'm just not sure that he arrives here in the form that he has done in previous years, and he's not managed to get the job done then. So I'm happy to pass him over. John's quite simply defending champion. Just not sure that it's geared up for him to perform well this week. I think Scotty finished in the top 10 after defending in 2023, which is remarkable. So I'm happy to put a line through him. That led me to Xander. I think he arrives here in super form. 6 top 10 finishes in his last 8 visits or events worldwide, which shows that his game's really, really strong right now. And then combining his current form with his Masters form, I think second here 2019, third here in 2021, and a 10th last year. So he's got 3 top 10s at the event previously, shown a liking for the track, arrives in super form and with inconsistencies in other players' games at the top of the market, makes him a real strong selection for me. I think this is his best chance of winning a major in some time. He's a big game player, 7 top 20 finishes in his last 7 majors. He arrives here with the proven mentality to perform on the big stage. His game's in good order. 18.5 on the Matchbook Exchange seems a really fair price to me, and I wouldn't even put anyone off 3-1-ish in the top 8 market.
Okay, and we'll explore those markets as we go. But Jack, before I move on to Will, just one concern on him not winning enough, and maybe compared to those around him in the market, his last win is probably in the similar line, but I don't know, sticks out to me is him hitting the water on 16 in the Masters, I think 2021, just when he was getting in contention.
Yeah, I remember that vividly. I'm going to blame you here, Daniel, for this one. I think Hideki was also one of the players that I liked at the top of the market, but I think he was taken up by someone beat me to it. So I do hear you with the concern about him not getting over the line enough, but he's put himself in contention so many times now, and I think he's due a bit of luck to go his way on a big occasion as well. I'm fairly happy with the 18.5 this week, but I feel loud and clear about that ability to go over the line on the big occasion. But this week is the week for him to don that green jacket. Comes evening.
I just wanted my concerns on the record, Jack. That's all that is. And I did pad Matsuyama in the dock, so both myself and Jack would wanted to tip him, but somehow Will's ended up sneaking in, and it's because it's only one selection each. We'll let you make the Hideki Matsuyama case, Will.
Yeah, I think I called shotgun on that one. I'll let you have the longer shots, but yeah, Matsuyama's been on my list. I think he's probably the one golfer I've known I'm going to tip for a number of weeks now. So it's nice to see that people are backing my case anyway on the side. Yeah, look, he's always been a player we've liked. He's obviously won the tournament a few years ago now. He's come back into form after a number of injury issues after the last couple of years. I think he's finally rid of the guts of those, and he seems to be playing pretty fluidly. He won the Genesis Invitational at Riviera, a really difficult track, as we know, about a month ago. And the Sunday round, he hit 62. One of the best rounds of golf I think I've ever seen. Certainly one of the best in the last couple of years. He blew the field away. And it was a strong field as well. He pipped Will Zalatoris to the win, who didn't have a bad round at all. That one hurt itself because I actually had a bit of money on Will myself, who he's a bit of a favourite of mine as well. So on that day itself, the next lowest score was 67, and that was only one other player. One other player lower than 67 that day. So he literally tore apart the field and took that tournament at a really difficult course. Since then, he's had a tied 12th at Bay Hill, a tied 6th at the Players, and a tied 7th last week at the Texas Open. So, he's right in the mix every week. His iron play is always exemplary. He's always very, very solid with the irons. He can be hitting it to a few feet on each hole. We've seen him do that a number of times. And driving accuracy is a slightly less important stat at Augusta. And with Hideki, we know he can go a bit rogue for a couple of holes. He does suddenly hit the trees a little bit, and we know with the kind of the wood chips on the floor and some of the sides of the fairways, you can get out of them all right at Augusta. So I think that's good for his case because he can bail himself out. His other stats are all looking pretty solid, and I think at 22.0, I just like that price slightly more than kind of the others. Other than Scheffler, I think Rory, Rahm, and Xander, I could put together a slightly weaker case. There's a few more unknowns of those. Rory can go completely rogue for half the round, whereas I feel like Hideki's going to be up there. And at 22.0, I think that's a really strong price. And thankfully, you two seem to back my case.
Yeah, there won't be any follow-up questions on Matsuyama. Don't worry about that. Really solid pick at 24.0. It is remiss not to mention Rory McIlroy. I am one of those golf punters that has essentially backed him for at least half of the majors in the last 10 years or so, and at least 70% of Augusta. His game should fit Augusta. He's played well at Augusta, but the majority of that's been back to our top 10s. So I'm just spending the next 2 days making sure I don't back him under any circumstances.
Well, once the rain comes, you're going to get tempted, aren't you?
The rain is huge, because if that comes, I mean, there's someone like Brian Harman, I don't think the rain suits at all, and someone like Rory McIlroy is at the other end of the scale. So I'm quite nervous how the next 2 days are going to go. I might just watch him tee off on one and just say I have to have some savor on Rory McIlroy. But joking aside,
the winning scores also.
Yeah,
where he gets down. Yeah, just say his winning scores usually right for Rory, isn't it? Sort of that -10 to -15 range. It's right up his street.
Exactly. It should all just fit him. And look, he's changed a little bit this year, making sure he plays the week before. There is a small part of me that's saying he's overthinking that a lot. Like he's on Sick to Football at the podcast saying that. There were signs those approach plays coming back to, and it was just the more the week went on last week, the more the case started becoming clear that he stopped missing it to the right, little things like that. But it'll ultimately be a no bet for me and Rory McIlroy, at least officially anyway. Keep an eye on my Twitter account. I might be tweeting out that I've backed him. But Jordan Spieth at 26.0. Again, last week's he was +4 until he got that hole in one and almost seemed to ignite him into life before eventually finishing tied for 10th. He says himself, and the eye test will say he's driving the ball phenomenally, at least the best he's driven it in a long time. Look, his Augusta record speaks for itself. I mean, we've got second, first, second, 11th, third, 21st, 46th, third, a miscut, and then fourth. So he's come to Augusta in terrible, terrible form and has always produced a really solid performance at least 80% of the time. His putting will be a concern. There were signs last week that he's slowly getting that back. So I don't know. I just feel he can ride a bit with Spieth, and a 26.0. I think you're getting compensated enough to take a chance on him at the price. So that'll be my official selection at the top of the market. Matsuyama for Will, and it is Sander for Jack. And you can see those prices running on screen there are the best on the odds checker grid. So if you are playing the win market, well worth checking out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Will, straight back to you on the middle of the market. So no official prices here, but everyone's gone around 40 to 60.0 mark. Who have you gone with?
Yeah, I've gone for Tony Finau. I'm a big fan of his. I have been really since he broke into the top of the world of golf. He's always seemed a really good fit for Augusta. So, he's had 3 top 10 finishes. I think he's played the tournament 6 times. He can move the ball both ways. So we regularly say it favors kind of the right-hand draw. He can do that. He hits sort of a bit of a power fade off the tee, but with his irons, he can pretty much move it both ways. And we can see him taking apart the par fives, which typically feed into a lot of the stats at the end of the week for the guys winning the tournament, typically taking a lot of their birdies and eagles from the par fives at Augusta. So I think he's really well set up for that. He's had a questionable year of form in terms of he's been pretty solid tee to green, actually getting even better than solid, being really up there. Just the putters let him down. He's looked so uncomfortable with it, anything under 10 feet for pretty much the majority of the season, but that's definitely turned over the last few weeks. So there was kind of signs for a couple of weeks. And then the week just gone, he's finished tied second in the week previous at the Houston Open. And he was actually second for strokes gained putting that week. It's kind of all I needed to see to get Tony on side. All he needs to do is, show me a bit of leg, and I'm jumping straight on Tony Finau. He's one of those golfers that it doesn't take much for me to want to get him on side. And I think, you're seeing numbers of 50 on the exchange there, around 7.0 to place in the top 8 market, which is another market that we're putting up on Matchbook now. So you can basically get your sort of sportsbook each way via the 2 different bets on the Matchbook exchange. So he's around 35-1 across the sportsbook, so 50.0 on the exchange for Tony to win. He could easily give you a very good run for his money. He was in the lead, I think, was it 2019? He was in the lead for a couple of the rounds. He was right up there, and I think the following year he put up a pretty strong showing as well. So he's definitely got some course form, and he's finally got some confidence with the flat stick.
Played in that final round with Tiger and Francesco Molinari in 2019. Obviously, in that story is Will Tiger Woods, and we didn't get to mention with the start, but I think we'll get to his price. I'll try and get Ryan to dig it out, but I think it's around the 200 mark on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. But that is interesting what Will said. If you do like doing your each way bets, 50.0, the win market, take your A place to 7.0, and you can decide, different to the sports book, how much you want to win on the win market versus the place market. 220.0, Tiger Woods on the drift on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. You can lay that at 230. Who's laying that at 230? I don't know.
I borrowed his shirt as well today.
Yes. Will, sorry, if we just go to Will on full screen here, producer Ryan, you can see the Tiger Woods. Are you a backer layer at 220.0, Will, very quickly?
I probably wouldn't go near it either way, but yeah, I wouldn't be a layer on Tiger at Augusta. Put it that way.
You gotta have a fun.
I was on board the Tiger Roll, Tiger Woods double that famous year. No. So that's probably my finest ever betting achievement.
Well, I have a Grand National Masters double, but I'll say that for the end of the show. Jack, Shane Lowry, what nearly puts me off tipping him myself as an Irishman, I feel there's a bit of bias in me when I'm digging through these quotes beyond the data. But the data would back up that he's quite a good play this week.
Yeah, certainly in my eyes, he is. I think the one thing that's been criticised about him in the past is his iron play. So he gets labelled as a short game specialist, a bit of a scrambling specialist. I obviously take for granted that he's got that in his locker, but his approach play and his long iron game that's just improved dramatically since he last picked up a major championship. He's a better golfer for me now, but significantly better with iron in hand from 150 yards to 200 yards. That's a key distance in Augusta. About 40% of the shots will come from that range this week. He's really good on long and demanding par fours, which is going to be another key part of success this week. There's 9 holes of 440 yards or longer of the 10 par fours, and he really does eat them up. He sits in the top 5 for strokes gained on those types of holes over the last 36 rounds on tour. 4th for strokes gained approach play over the last 50 rounds on tour, which is something that if you were to do a quiz question, I don't think many people would guess that Shane Lowry is a top 4 iron player in the world. Over the last 50 rounds. He's a major champion, so he's been there, done it, bought the t-shirt. He's improved consistently at Augusta National. I think he missed 3 of his first 4 cuts here and then finished 25th, 21st, 3rd in 2022, I think, and then 16th last year. So he's got used to the track now. He shaped the ball beautifully both ways, a bit like Will mentioned with Tony Finau, who natural shaper of the ball. So Shane Lowry. And I believe that he's got an outstanding chance this week. And his odds are just too big, in my opinion, at 60-1 and then around 10-1 in the 8-play market. That is just too big for me in representing his chances this week. When I look at other players more favoured above him in the market, people like Joaquin Niemann, half the price of him. I mean, just blows my mind. This guy's a major champ, done it under the most intense pressure that you could ever wish for in a golf event. With his game in tip-top shape, he'll do for me this week. Shane Lowry.
Yeah, I followed him around Royal Portrush Saturday and Sunday 2019. I'll never forget it. And both Finau and Lowry made my long list of the middle of the market picks. So I'm glad the guys went for them there. But I don't know. I was sort of going through this last night, and this player wasn't necessarily on my radar till I had a good look into it. But I'm going for Matt Fitzpatrick, and I think his current price is around 42.0. A couple of things on Matt Fitzpatrick. It's sort of half been well documented, but I wouldn't say it's fully in the public domain, at least if you're only betting on the Masters in a golf event. But Matt Fitzpatrick was playing with extra weight in his driver for the last 12 months. He didn't discover, basically, long story short, he wanted extra weight in his irons and then last minute put extra weight in his driver, decided he didn't want the extra weight in the irons. Matt Fitzpatrick himself completely forgot to take out the extra weight in the driver. So they didn't discover this for about a year. He still won twice last year, although his swing was definitely more inconsistent. He was saying when he swings hard, he basically missed the ball left, and he couldn't understand why. No one could understand why. They only discovered this last February, so they got rid of the extra weight. Since then, 5th of the players, and then last week he was on the completely wrong side of the draw. Tough conditions, usual stuff. Matt Fitzpatrick in tough conditions, backdoored into a tied for 10th. So I don't know. I'm quite excited for him. He's had a top 10 his first Masters start and last Masters start. He's otherwise been unhappy with his record at Augusta, and he's also been working with a. It's amazing what you've discovered on a bit of a deep dive. He's been working with a baseball coach to fix a bit of a neck injury, which he's had some issues with. So I'm expecting a big major season. The Masters itself might come a tad too soon, but I just can't let him go at this price at around 43.0, 42.0. So I'll be locking in Matt Fitzpatrick for my middle of the market selection. Tony Finau for Will, really big shout out for 7.0 in the top 8. And same for Jack, 10.0, top 8 Shane Lowry, but 60.0 his win price. Jack, take it away. Final selection. And this is a player who not only played well last week, has also got a really good record at Augusta.
He certainly has. Russell Henley, 8-1 on the Matchbook Exchange will be my big price pick. For 85 perhaps now, I think there's available. So, and I'll definitely be considering playing him in the top 20 market and in the top 8 market that's all available on the Matchbook Exchange. So he's a player that, like you say, he's underrated by the market, and his Masters record is somewhat surprisingly good. For a player that's above 50-1 at each Masters event that he'll have participated in, he's only missed 1 cut from 7. He's got 3 top 20s, 11th here in 2017, 15th in 2018, and then 4th here last year, which shows his liking for the track. we've talked about sort of the skills that are required this week to win Masters. You've got to be good on these challenging par fours, and he's a top player under those circumstances. A really solid driver of the ball. Not the biggest shot shaper in the world. Hits a fairly great trajectory. But his iron play is very much underrated. He's a consistent iron player, and when the flat stick gets hot, there's no one better with a flat stick in hand. He's got a real good chance of outrunning his odds this week. For a top 20 play at the price is somebody that I'd really want on side. Gaining strokes off the tee in 12 of his last 13 events. Gaining strokes with his approach play in 6 of his last 8 events. Short game. Always very good with Russell Henley, so I'm happy to make a play for him over some of the other players that were talked about at that price range, such as Siwoo Kim. I think I'm not sure if anyone's actually putting him up this week, but he's a player in that similar price range selection for me, and I just think that he's got a better temperament and more consistent player, exactly the same price as Siwoo. So he was one that I was deliberating. He'll be very popular this week at that type of area. But Henley got the nod for myself.
Yeah, Siwoo Kim, he suits the stats perfect, but look, he's broken his putter before at Augusta. I think that might say it all on his temperament ultimately. Will, I've liked every selection so far, which is you can't back them all, obviously. I don't know if I like this one even at this price. I'm well looking forward to hearing your case here.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I'd bring a bit of emotion to the master selection. Just like, yeah. Also, the long shots you guys are going for were sort of 80 to 1. I wanted to pick it up a bit higher than that. So Sergio Garcia, 210 on the exchange at the moment. So I guess if you're building a case for him, he's the same price there as Tiger Woods. So I'll kind of use that as my base to put the case together. So he's on the Live Tour at the moment. He came second in the week just finished in Miami. Again, I think we used to sort of side smile when you putting together the numbers based on Live Golf performance, but now you look at the quality of the golfers in there. You can't argue the fact that there is some really solid players in there. Rahm, Dustin Johnson, Koepka. There's some proper players in the mix for the Live tournaments at the moment, and he's finished second in the 5 events he's played this year. I guess if you're putting kind of a comparison to that, Jon Rahm's been there for the same period of time, and he has not won a tournament yet this year. So Garcia's basically as much in the mix as Jon Rahm has been for the Live Golf schedule over the first few months of this year. He's a Masters veteran. It's his 24th appearance. I had a look earlier. He's obviously got the 1 win. He's got another 3 top 10s. So yeah, I just wanted to pick someone at the very higher end, but I can just imagine, you can just see that leaderboard after Thursday or Friday, and you can just see Garcia kind of a couple of shots off the lead, and when he's in that position with the experience you have, you can just imagine that if he's still there, after 6 or 7 holes on Sunday, you can just imagine, he'll putting together a pretty solid case that he could win that tournament by order of other people crumbling ahead of him. If you put him against, Cameron Young, or even dare I say, Shane Lowry, who has bottled a few tournaments in recent years, I just think Garcia is going to has the kind of experience and credentials that he could sneak a victory. And I guess another part to my tip is kind of the long price on the exchange. You obviously only need a few pounds to make some good money there. But I'm actually putting a top 20 bet on him rather than the top 8 that I mentioned earlier. Top 20, I think, for Garcia was a very strong price. I'm just trying to remember the number I had there.
4.9.
4.9, yeah, for top 20. I just think someone that's just finished second in the tournament ahead of Jon Rahm, ahead of some other really solid players, I think he could be somewhere up there.
Okay, you can see that price on screen for a top 20 finish on the Matchbook betting exchange. And my selection at 100.0 is Corey Connors. So this is a player who won the Valero Texas Open, which is the week before the Masters, obviously heading into last year's, before eventually finishing with a missed cut. disappointing, but his previous 3 years were 10th, 8th, and 6th. His stroke gains tee to green in his last 4 star has been 23.2. There's a stat going around on Twitter. You would have seen the last 12 winners have had at least 18.0. Essentially, in layman's terms, that means he's striking the ball very, very well. And I just think he's ultra consistent. I was looking through his just his form in terms of finishes, and he's had 16 starts without a missed cut since last year's US Open. Suggests to me he'll be consistently there with solid rounds. And I don't think Corey Connors could necessarily win the Masters, but I definitely feel come Saturday or Sunday, he could be up there in a price of maybe 4, 5, 6.0, contending in that case 100.0 for a back to lay option. But also there's options in the top 5, 8, 10, or 20 markets, whatever way you're inclined. So 100.0 Corey Connors. I just feel last year's missed cut is definitely an outlier, and I feel this year, given that he hasn't come to the Masters off a victory, will only help his case, if that makes any sense. We will move on to just any other golfers or long lists, guys, just for people listening. A couple maybe big prices, or just in general you want to give a shout out to. You don't want the podcast to go by without it. Just very quickly, Brian Harman. If the course stays dry, I think he's a really solid player here. I know his Masters record isn't great, but did play well a couple of years ago. His Open win was absolutely sensational. I just like the way he's been speaking in interviews this week too. The rain is a massive concern there, so I would note that. And Adam Scott, I've actually backed him the last couple of years to the Masters. This is the best form he's gone into the Masters probably in the last 5 or 6 years. It's amazing that his long game is probably the one that needs to get up to standard as opposed to his putting, but it has shown signs of improvement over the last few months. So they're just 2 golfers I give a shout out to. Jack, for you?
Well, one of mine's taken a hit from Will already that he can't get over the line, and that's Cam Young. He's a player that really interests me this week. A natural drawer of the ball off the tee, hits it absolutely miles, got the game that's built for big boy tracks and big boy golf courses, which Augusta National is. 3 top 10s in his last 6 starts, gained strokes with his approach play in each of his last 6 events. He's a player that I'll be looking to play in various markets and look at the draw for the 3 balls. And then in terms of just a huge price play, not quite reaching the levels, I don't think, of Sergio Garcia, but it'd be around that 220, 200 to 1 mark, would be Harris English. He's not got a great Augusta record. I think his best place finish 20th or 21st a couple of years back. He's only had four goes at the track. But he's got the temperament, I believe, and to take down a major if he does get himself in contention. A really underrated all-round golf game. Super solid putter, which is important, and a really good around the green game. So if he can strike his irons fairly well this week, he can outrun those odds of 200 to 1 plus with the Matchbook Exchange. And player to consider for the top 20 market for me. So they'd be to mention.
Okay, Will, for you?
Yeah, I put Scheffler here mainly just as a sort of one that I can fall back on and say, look,
to cover yourself. Yeah.
But I won't bother so much on that. My other one is my namesake, Will Zalatoris, who, again, you've heard me mention a couple of times. I'm a huge fan of his. He's played here twice, and both times he's almost won or been in the mix. I think he finished top 10 in both of them. I just think he's made for this course. He still looks horrible when he putts from 4 foot, but they tend to go in, so we'll let him off for that. I just think he's a big game player, and I think we're going to see, now he's back from injury, he's going to win something really big soon, and I think this is probably his best fit for a major. So, he's one that I was pretty much coin flipping between him and Tony Finau.
Okay, yeah. So that again, we'll put this as an insights article, just all the guys' picks that's been put up here. So Matchbook Insights, search that in your Google search, or insights.matchbook.com if you want a full recap. Post recording that'll be up around Tuesday afternoon. We just wanted a little section at the end, betting strategy for the week. Mine would just be keep an eye, first round lead in particular. Jack alluded to this already. There could potentially be a massive draw bias for Thursday morning players, depending when those thunderstorms come. It could easily be the Thursday afternoon. So sort of play that by ear and maybe take advantage if the prices hasn't reflected that. Will, for you, and it's the same every year, the Masters, it's the biggest event in golf, one of the biggest sport betting events in sport. It's important not to get carried away too much.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's easy to make a case for any golfer, and the strength in the field these days is enormous. And there's obviously so many unknowns with the various tours colliding. I think I described it to you earlier as it's a bit like a Boxing Day lunch. Like, you can just imagine an argument rumbling between a couple of strange uncles on the side of the course, so you don't know how they're all going to get along. You don't know how some of the live golfers are going to perform. Jack mentioned Joaquin Niemann earlier. I've seen him tipped quite heavily, and I don't know enough, I think, about how he's going to perform on the biggest stage right now. So yeah, I'd say just make your picks. Don't get carried away, because otherwise you can end up covering the field.
Yeah, and the other player wins.
Be aware of the weather. I think I'd maybe not drawn as much attention as you guys. So yeah, definitely make sure your picks are on the right side of the draws.
Yeah, which is sometimes a hard thing to do pre-tournament. Jack, for you?
Yeah, just remember, enjoy the week. It's an incredible week, and obviously with the Grand National on Saturday as well. So yeah, and pay attention to that weather and the first round leader options that become available because of it. You might want to favour a player at the start of the day if the ground conditions are very soft. It usually pays to go for an AM tee off if looking at the first round leader bets. And then I'm going to just look to take on some of the top stars in the world in the 3-ball, get an out. So players such as Tom Kim, Patrick Cantlay, Justin Rose. Rose got a good Augusta record, so people potentially favour him. His game's just awful right now. Tom Kim, don't believe he's long enough to compete at this golf course. I'm not sure his game's up to it. So I'm going to be looking to take a closer look once the draw comes out. But most of all, enjoy the week. It's incredible.
Yeah, I would echo that from the guys. Enjoy the week. It's we're due a good Masters. We've had okay Masters, I'd say, since the Tiger one, I would say, in terms of finishes. So let's hope for a back nine on Sunday. Battle between 3 or 4 players. And before we go, I promised the Grand National and Masters double. Meeting of the Waters is a horse I put up for the Grand National a few weeks ago. Semi-confident, was around 16.0 at the time. I'm nearly more confident that the money has finally come from a small bit. He's been tipped up in a lot of places, but 10.11.0 in and around that. Worth a little double with Scotty Scheffler. I'll play it safe on that. You'll get around 60 to 70.0 on the double, and it's well worth taking if that's your way inclined. My thanks to Jack and Will. Check out Matchbook's content for the Grand National and the Premier League this week. A lot of stuff going out. Check on your Twitter feed, podcast feed, and YouTube channel. But above all, enjoy this weekend's of sport, and particularly the Masters. Bye-bye.